Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes Reacts. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
And collectively we are two of the Office Blokes. Office Bloke Mike is doing a bit of bird in Alcatraz, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's been a naughty boy.
Again,
yeah. He's broken his bail conditions and has been recalled back to Strange Ways.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a shame, but keep your nose clean, Mike, and then hopefully you'll be back soon.
One of the bars are going, I can see Strange Ways from the window. And the other day, where Mike's cell is, it's like the corner unit.
Yeah.
And he holds up different colour pieces of paper in the window to make sure on what mood he's feeling, he told me.
Oh, right, really?
So, if he's in a happy mood, he'll post a blue or yellow.
Oh, that's nice.
And if he's in a bad mood and whatever, he's being bullied, he puts up red. He was like fucking about 8 red pieces of paper in the window.
And you understand with your pint.
Like, cheers, mate.
Chin up, mate.
It's your own fault.
We're only messing. Someone in Office Bloke Mike's household has tested positive for COVID, so pending a negative COVID test, he's not going to be here for a couple of days potentially.
That's right.
I've just spotted what you've written there.
What I've written?
Let's see on the board, Russell something.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, hashtag pray for Mike. So there you go.
Inmate Mike.
What was it like to be an inmate at Alcatraz? I'm guessing pretty dark.
It must have been grim.
My biggest experience of Alcatraz is the movie The Rock, which is an absolute classic of a movie. So I don't know. I mean, when did it shut? It's not been open for decades, has it?
We'll find out.
Let's do it then. What was it like to be an inmate at Alcatraz?
San Francisco's hottest tourist attractions these days are a big red bridge and an abandoned prison. But before it was a $60 tour for the whole family, Alcatraz was a max security federal prison that was home to a lot of very bad dudes. And yes, strictly dudes. Today we're going to explore what it was like to be a prisoner in Alcatraz. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know what famous historical landmark you would like to hear more about. Alcatraz had a strict maximum occupancy for its cells, topping off at just one inmate per jail cell. Alcatraz was generally kept at a capacity of 330 men, which meant individual cells allowing for assured safety and privacy. This resulted in Alcatraz being the sort of Mykonos of prison destinations for some federal prisoners, requesting this all-inclusive hotspot for their mandatory stays. Cells were divided into blocks, with blocks B and C housing 336 cells measuring a cozy 5 feet by 9 feet. Cell block A was the real fixer-upper of the blocks. A broken down row of cells with so much unlocked potential, this block was not used to house inmates for any significant amount of time. Cell block D was reserved for those sent to solitary confinement, and though those cells were larger than the typical cells, inmates were forced to spend 24 hours a day in this space, with one weekly exception to spend some time in the recreation yard. Solitary confinement could last anywhere from a few days to several weeks, and as a former inmate, Jim Quillen, put it, a day in the hole was like an eternity.
That's terrifying to me, that. The idea of that solitary confinement for weeks at a time, let out once a week, I'd go mad in minutes.
I don't think I could do prison time.
You can see why people act up in prison, because if it's so monotonous and they're struggling so much, just break up your day by lashing out or taking drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
It's rough, isn't it?
Prisoners in Alcatraz were given the rights to only 4 guaranteed things: food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, while other privileges, like access to the library, were earned. When a prisoner arrived at Alcatraz, donning the standard stamped prison uni after the clothes they arrived in were taken and inmates were showered. While in the clothing room, they were also strip searched and given cursory medical examinations. The residents of Alcatraz were given 3 meals a day, a roof over their head that they legally could not leave, and visitation access to hospital care if they ever should need it. The hospital at Alcatraz also provided dental and psychiatric services as well. Until the 1950s, there was a physician in residence, but due to budget cuts, the position was eliminated in favor of contracted doctors in the final years the prison was open. The hospital also became the permanent home for the very sick inmates, with some even serving out huge chunks of their sentence in the infirmary. The Birdman of Alcatraz, Robert Stroud, spent 11 of his 17 years in the hospital due to both a kidney infection and Birdman's need to be isolated from people on account of him being dangerous. The library of Alcatraz had stacks on stacks on stacks of books for inmates to read should they earn the privilege to do so, a privilege that could also be taken away for misbehavior. Inmates couldn't visit the library at all, Instead, each morning, those with library privileges filled out a card requesting items they could find from a catalog. These items, be it books, magazines, and the like, were delivered to their cells with all crime-related content removed ahead of time. Since reading was one of the few leisurely activities inmates could look forward to, some took full advantage of what the library had to offer, using the opportunity to study law, learn other languages, or take correspondence classes offered by the University of California at Berkeley. Other leisurely endeavors the inmates could earn with good behavior included recreational activities such as chess or softball, and also visits with family members and work duty. In the 1950s, prisoners were given access to headsets so they could listen to the radio and watch movies in the auditorium. Just like with library privileges, any of these could be taken away if the inmate stepped out of line. The Alcatraz band, awesomely called the Rock Islanders, were made up of inmates who had earned the right to jam out. Though a revolving door of members throughout the years, positions within the band were highly coveted. Even Al Capone himself begged to be let in, which eventually he was. Capone wrote to his son he had learned to play the tenor guitar, tenor banjo, and was learning how to play the mandolin, and eventually learned how to play more than 500 songs. The band itself was, according to former guard George Gregory, only a cut above the 4th or 5th grade band, but it did wonders for their self-esteem. The band played on holidays in the dining hall, with Sunday and special event performances sprinkled in as well. Inmates could purchase their instruments, but after regulations issued in 1956, could only practice between 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Any instrument played outside these parameters would result in the confiscation of said instrument and disciplinary action to the inmate playing. Cells at Alcatraz.
You'd be reading a lot of books, wouldn't you?
You know, what would you do?
You just go mad.
You would, yeah. It's not helping anyone, is it?
I mean, it's that great debate, isn't it? Are you rehabilitating or are you punishing? Because if it's rehabilitation, being locked in a cell all day, every day doesn't rehabilitate anyone, but it does punish people that have done horrible things.
I mean, I'm not sure how many prisons are out. I mean, I'm sure there's fucking loads of prisons around the world which are, bad.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I see some of these locked up, banged up abroad sort of shows, and you see some of these prisons in like Honduras and El Salvador.
Yeah, yeah.
You're thinking, fucking hell.
Yeah, there's some of them that don't have guards. The guards are outside the prison, isn't they? And they've got firearms, drugs, everything like that in there. It's crazy. I kind of like the model of, you earn your right to get books. You earn your right to the privileges, because you're going to be a dick, then it's all gone. It's how you treat children at the end of the day.
Rehabilitation as well, I guess. Yeah.
Were quite small and didn't come with much. Just a cot, a wash basin, and a toilet. When future Yelp reviewer and pretty bad dude Jim Quellen arrived at Alcatraz, he remarked that his new living quarters were pretty subpar, noting that all he saw was a steel bed, a straw mattress, and a dirty, lumpy pillow. He went on to note the toilet had no seat, and the wash basin only had one tap, which was only for cold water. Inmates were not allowed to bring in outside items, and Alcatraz didn't exactly have a gift shop yet, so creature comforts were sparse. However, after prison regulations in the 1950s, they were allowed to purchase certain items, including textbooks, correspondence courses, musical instruments, or magazine subscriptions. The first warden of Alcatraz, James A. Johnston, was a real no-nonsense guy, instituting a rule of silence at the prison that lasted until 1937, and basically keeping all of these inmates on mute while under his watchful eye. Under Johnston's very cool rule, prisoners were only permitted to speak at meals or during recreation time. Johnston, however, cared far less about their smoking habits, allowing prisoners to smoke up to 3 packs of cigarettes a week, which meant smoking cigarettes was more common than speaking at Alcatraz. To get around his prison rules, prisoners would communicate to each other through pipes between cells, like tin can telephones. The rule was eventually lifted because it was both difficult to enforce and flat-out cruel. The golden rule of silence remained, though, for those troublesome prisoners locked in solitary confinement, which our resident Alcatraz complainer Quinlan described as total silence and darkness as his only constant companion for 24 hours of the 19 days he spent in the hole.
19 days
terrifies me. That you've got to be silent. It's pitch black. All you can wait for, I guess, to tell how time is passing is your food coming in at a certain time of the day.
You could go out and have food, couldn't you?
Pop out and get a KFC. Yeah. Do you think in that situation, would you rather have a cell on your own, or would you rather be with someone?
On my own.
Really?
I won't last.
I like my own company, but at the same time, I think I'd need someone in the cell just so you can have conversations and just try and have some semblance of normality a little bit.
Depends who you sell, mate. You don't get to choose who that might
Oh,
be.
no, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Big bubba who likes to spoon at night.
So do I.
The incarcerated citizens of Alcatraz were served 3 meals a day. Breakfast at 6:45 a.m.,
Ooh.
lunch at...
You get
Breakfast looks all right, full English.
I know, yeah, you get full English.
Citizens of Alcatraz were served 3 meals a day. Breakfast...
Bit of black pudding as well.
Yeah.
Oh. As long as there's some brown sauce and a little bit of black pepper or something, I'm all right with that.
6:45 a.m., lunch at 11:40 a.m., and dinner at a reasonable 4:25 in the afternoon. But the food was allegedly the best served in the federal prison system. Kitchen staffers at Alcatraz took pride in what they served their fellow inmates, with some even coming from culinary backgrounds. As former inmate Brian Conway recalled in 1938, food at Alcatraz is much better than usual prison fare. For dinner, there's meat, beans, coffee, bread, and celery. For supper, chili, tomatoes, and apples with hot tea. According to a menu from 1946, meals included stewed fruits, cereal, milk, bread, and coffee for breakfast, and lunch, being the biggest meal of the day, included soup and meat like roasted pork shoulder or beef pot pie. Dinner might include leftovers from these extravagant lunches fit for a king, and even get dessert such as apple pie, cake, or jello. Like
Nice.
most of us just trying to get through the day, work became the best way for inmates to pass the time at this federal prison. Prisoners not in solitary could work a variety of jobs in the laundry, kitchen, or on the docks. Inmates would march to their jobs after breakfast and earn a staggering 5 to 12 cents an hour. Industry jobs like the laundry room or woodworking plant allowed prisoners to actually deduct 2 days of their sentence for each month worked during their first year, and increased to 4 days for the second through fourth years, and finally 5 days per month from 5 years on.
That is
Good
a great
idea.
idea. It really is, because to a degree they're going to be paying for their own keep because they're working. It's teaching them the value of hard work, which I'm guessing some of these guys in here don't comprehend just yet.
Is hard work not going in a bank with a gun and getting £1 million?
Oh, I'm sure it's hard work, yeah. Yeah. At least 2 hours work goes into that. But yeah, that's quite a good incentive, that actually.
Alcatraz prisoners were counted several times a day to keep them accounted for. Prisoner Brian Conway noted that the bell was the signal for the count of prisoners, a really serious business which is done every 30 minutes. In reality, it was more like 13 times a day, far less than every 30 minutes. Prisoners lined up outside their cells and were counted first thing in the morning, on their way to breakfast, at the mess hall, and counted after eating before heading off to work, where they were counted again. Prisoners were also counted before lunch, after lunch in their cells, another midday check-in before dinner, one after dinner in their cells, and a couple of times after lights out at 9:30. When Brian Conway checked into Alcatraz, he noted he was introduced to the snitch box, a metal detector used to search prisoners for contraband that worked too well. He remembered the snitch box sounding an alarm on every man who came from the laundry, which, after what was surely a gentle search, was discovered that the snitch box was picking up on the metal clasps on the men's shoes. A few days later, however, the snitch box remained alarmingly silent as 2 men carried knives in their pockets. The snitch box was one of 3 metal detectors in the prison, with guests and prisoners alike having to pass through, including one embarrassing moment with Al Capone's mama, when the metal stays in her corset kept setting off the detectors, forcing Mama Capone to strip down. Because so much of life inside of Alcatraz was an earned privilege and not a right, mandated guests of Alcatraz were limited in their correspondence with the outside world and subjected to judgment by prison authorities. While prisoners in solitary confinement could receive no letters, well-behaved prisoners could send and receive letters that were regulated and monitored, which wouldn't be a problem anyways because, as Brian Conway noted, letters were to and from blood relatives only. On Mother's Day, they were allowed to write their dear, sweet mothers, and they better have, but that correspondence too had to be approved by prison officials. The handwritten notes were retyped, and a copy was given to the inmate. Visitation was also heavily regulated, as one can imagine, with inmates requesting permission for a visitor only after earning the right to visitation time. Prisoners got one 90-minute visit a month by either a blood relative or a wife, where they would talk on a phone through a small glass window. Conversation was closely monitored, and any talk of other inmates would shut the whole thing down. As accurately depicted in the 1979 classic Escape from Alcatraz, escaping the rock was damn near impossible. That didn't stop 14 different escape attempts during the duration of the prison's existence, involving 36 prisoners. Considering that the lifetime number of inmates was 1,545 men, a pretty small sample size in the scheme of things. The efforts to escape Alcatraz had to be bold, since leaving the island was extremely treacherous, if not on a boat. Joe Bowers tried to climb over a fence but was shot and died from his injuries. The following year, Theodore Cole and Ralph Rose escaped and attempted to swim to San Francisco, only to get caught in a storm and drift away at sea, and their bodies were never found. Unsuccessful trips to freedom failed again in...
How do they know they died?
Precisely.
Yeah.
I know somebody who swam around Alcatraz.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I don't know if they do it every year or what, but there's a challenge. But I don't think you start from the shore. I think you jump off a boat and then you swim around it. So it's doable, I guess, if you're super fit.
1938, 1939, 1941, and 1943. In 1945, John Giles got cute, piecing together an army uniform by slowly gathering materials over time while on laundry duty. Finally, it was John Giles' time to shine as he donned his piecemeal hobo outfit and made it all the way to Angel Island before being apprehended and sent back to prison. The following year was the year of the Battle of Alcatraz, which was as fun as it sounds. 6 prisoners overpowered the guards and stole their weapons, only to discover nobody had the key to the recreation yard. In a pure panic move, they started a riot, and gunfire was exchanged between the inmates and the guards. The battle lasted a full 2 days, and 3 prisoners and 2 guards were killed. A few prisoners took to the waves and tried to swim away from Alcatraz, but nobody made it to shore, and some bodies were never found. In 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, disappeared from their cells and were never seen or heard from again. This disappearing act of 3 criminals in federal prison would later inspire the aforementioned film Escape from Alcatraz. The prevailing theory is the trio shimmied down the drain pipes after they slipped through enlarged vent holes in their cells and then attempted to swim to safety. It's assumed they died in the process of swimming to shore, but who knows? Our old pal Brian Conway claimed the monotony and the strict discipline of this penitentiary drove 14 of the 317 prisoners violently insane during the final year of his sentence, with several others getting a little stir-crazy. Doctors on the Rock at times would accuse inmates of faking their mental illness in order to gain some type of advantage. Prisoner Joe Bowers was admitted to Alcatraz in 1934 and after refusing to work was thrown into solitary confinement. He attacked 2 guards twice. This fit of rage was inexplicably diagnosed as epilepsy until a few months later when an actual psychiatrist said there might be reason to believe he was truly psychotic. Though that same dude cautioned he had something to gain if he can induce us to believe he is insane, though what exactly that would be is unclear. Once this faker was returned to his cell, he tried to take his own life. He would die in 1936 while trying to escape. So what do you think of Alcatraz? Let us know in the comments below. And
I think I wouldn't want to end up there.
No. I mean, I know there's a lot of prisons around the world now, like I said before, that are really bad. You know, I don't know if Alcatraz has the reputation of being the utmost worst of over the period of time.
I definitely think in the 1930s, I think it was, when they said there was a silence thing. Yeah. That is such mental anguish to deprive someone the ability to talk. That, you know, a lot of these other scary prisons around the world nowadays, it's because of the violence and the drugs and stuff. That's
what I was going to say. It has the notoriety because it has people like Al Capone in there, and you know, certain prisoners that they hold as inmates.
Yeah,
you know, it's makes it probably the worst prison.
I wouldn't cope unless you can have your head in books. Or I know in this country there's a lot of people that can buy PlayStations and there's a lot of luxuries, isn't there? But it's still not somewhere you'd want to end up, is it really?
Prison. Yeah.
I'd be, if I was in Alcatraz, I'd definitely be trying to break out. And just think, well,
I was laughing at that guy who made his uniform over the period of time, and then he escaped, got to the island, got captured and get marched back. You'd be like, oh, fuck's sake, so far. But
that whole plan and that whole sense of purpose that he's been planning for years is probably what kept him going.
Maybe.
So although the escape wasn't successful, he's mentally kept himself sharp for a few years, figuring stuff out. And that's what you thought. Even if you weren't going to escape, planning an escape over years is probably going to keep you grounded.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's definitely not a place we want to go.
Not for me, no.
Prison that is. But Alcatraz, I think it's still sort of like I think did they close it down now?
Yeah. Well, he said
not as a prison. I'm talking about as a
tourist attraction. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think I might have read somewhere that it was either ready to be closed down or being closed down.
Oh, right.
As a tourist attraction.
I wonder why they do that.
To tour on site, I think you still see it, obviously.
Maybe
But let us know if that's the case. I can't remember what...
maybe it's cost too much to keep it open,
possibly.
or it's in a state of disrepair or something. But I was going to say, it'd be a cool place to go and have a look.
Yeah. I've been to San Francisco, but never not to Alcatraz. I only went for the day.
Did you?
Yeah, for work and in and out sort of thing.
Fair enough. In and out in San Francisco.
Yep.
Yep, all right.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that too. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.